Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
This one is a shocker. Out of 555 projects that are currently being implemented across the country, 190 projects are facing cost overrun of nearly 60%. In value term, this 60% works out to 1,30,000 crore rupees. That's a huge number. So can the adoption of project management practice bring this number down drastically so that the money so saved can be effectively deployed elsewhere? Project management, an imperative for India's growth story. That's our talking point today. Joining me on the show are Mr. B.K. Batra, Deputy MD, IDBI Bank, Mr. Sunit Maheshwari, CEO and MD of L&T Infra Finance, Mr. Rajiv Batra, Partner, KPMG, and joining us from Delhi via Obi-Wan link is Mr. Amitabh Khan, CEO and MD, Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor Development Corporation Limited. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Okay, Mr. Batra, if I may begin with you. Why do infrastructure projects generally in this country face time and cost overruns?
One could be, faulty formulation of projects, that in the stage of formulation itself we don't really pay the kind of detailed attention to certain projects because of their complexity which they deserve. Second could be that there is a long list of approvals and clearances on which these projects are dependent and which take time. Third is that at the execution stage, the developers, they are not in a position to manage it as well as they should because of reasons attributable to the project, because of the reasons attributable to external factors as well.
Mr. Maheshwari, you want to join him?
First problem that most of the projects suffer is land related, either land acquisition or something of that kind. So I think, and we've looked at about 600 odd projects of different sizes, both in public and private, and this is a common theme. The second, I would put it under the basket of clearances, and the topmost issue that comes under the basket of clearances is coal or fuel linkages that are there.
That is the power sector generally.
Yeah.
Environmental clearance also?
Environment clearance and forest clearance, R&R, this is another big issue that is there. The second part, actually I should have not talked about coal, but is linkages, which is either a transmission linkage, or if it's a port, then there is a port connectivity road or rail linkage, rail sidings, and coal linkage, coal fuel, logistics linkages. I think these are the three major baskets.
Okay. Rajiv, you want to add as a KPMG, what has been your experience?
There are three components of project management. Plan, execute, evaluate. Seems simple, but we all know most projects are not well planned and are not well evaluated. Most projects, project managers hit the project into execution and stay on the execution, and as soon as the project gets over, which probably 3 years, 4 years, get into the other project execution.
That's what Mr. Mahesh was saying. There is the exuberance, and then you want to get into plan, but there's no get into the execution of the project, but there's no planning.
So the point I'm making is that the three components or pillars of the project, every focus is only execution, with no emphasis on the front end and back end of planning it well, and after the project is executing, spending time in evaluating what went right or wrong in the project, so that your learnings can go on to the next project.
Let me get Mr. Amitabh Kant, your view also.
Yeah. Well, first of all, projects are not well structured. There's a huge poverty of well structured projects. Secondly, I feel that before a project is approved, it's very important to form a special purpose vehicle and house the land and all the necessary approvals. In India, it takes close to about 3 years to get close to about 40 to 45 odd clearances which a project requires. It's necessary that the project preparation work, all the approvals are taken and housed into the SPV itself, and actually the SPV needs to be bid out in a transparent, competitive manner with all the approvals intact. I think third key issue to my mind is
in the past, the sovereign incubated SPV is what has been suggested in the past. I think it's still on the paper, I suppose. Is it feasible and why is the government not taking action on that?
Actually, to my mind, unless a whole range of projects are incubated with specific SPVs and all the necessary approvals housed in this, projects will keep getting delayed. Because, you know, projects keep getting announced at a concept stage. Projects need to be structured with all the necessary approvals. There's a softer component of these projects and there's a harder component of this project. So I think the softer component of the project preparation work needs to be done in a very, very scientific manner. And I think all this needs to be done by bringing in project management consultants who have delivered across the world. There's a whole lot of skills available, and bringing them at the initial stage itself will, you know, it's an investment which will save a lot of time in the long run. So to my mind, the last issue which I want to emphasize on is the harder component, and that is issues of detailed engineering and execution. And I think you'll bring in a lot of efficiency into the project execution if you have project management consultants who actually review the detailed designs which have been done and then supervise and monitor the execution on ground. I mean, the government needs to move away and introduce new management skills into projects.
Let me get Rajiv. Is it lack of too many mature players like EPC or like an L&T in the sector that is the reason there's a project delay? What is your take on that?
I think yes. One of the, in fact, if you look at it, in fact, the core and the root of the problem, because infrastructure required construction. And if you look around, our construction sector, which incidentally is the single largest contributor to GDP, the kind of maturity of the players in the construction sector is still very low. There are not the too many the likes of the leading players like the L&Ts who are offering the services, and because of that, the construction sector lacks the management, the maturity, the skill, and most importantly the access to the tools and technologies which are available.
Mr. Batra, as a banker, what is your worry when you fund infrastructure projects?
One of the worries obviously is that should be completed in time and they should be completed within the estimated cost.
There's a tremendous saving in terms of using project management practices in today's economy. One, professional project management practices ensures that the projects are completed within cost, within time. Two, the monies are now available for doing other projects because there is no cost overrun. And three, most importantly, the compounded benefit of the projects getting completed on time is such that there is a benefit to the economy, there is a benefit to the society, because people are now able to utilize the infrastructure project for which it was meant for.
Mr. Batra, as a banker, what is your worry when you fund infrastructure projects?
Well, one of the worries obviously is that they should be completed in time and they should be completed within the estimated cost, because you know it's around that the project viability is built.
Yeah.
And if a project gets delayed, it gets into cost overrun, the inherent strength of the project, the viability gets impaired. And that's why it's very important that the time of implementation is estimated properly after careful study. The costs are also arrived at properly. Proper cushions are built for the realistic environment in which we are operating, how long it's going to take to acquire land, get approvals and then really get going. Rather than being ambitious on that front.
Okay, let me get Mr. Kantan. You're doing a very ambitious project, $90 billion DMIC. So what is the status of the project? Have you got all the green signal?
This is a very ambitious and a very complex project, and it's very important to break up a large project of this nature into commercially doable projects. What is actually being planned is 7 new industrial cities. So we finished the master planning of each of these industrial cities. We've broken the cities into doable projects. We've formed SPVs and we are taking all the necessary approvals for each one of the projects. We will not put a single project into the market till the land and all its approvals have been housed into that SPV, so that execution becomes far more easier. And I think in the Indian context, the real value you add to a project is in project development, because the project development is so complex that if you've taken all the approvals and if you've got the land, then I think 50% of the battle is won in a project. I think, to my mind, that is the key, really. But the second very critical thing that we are doing is that other than master planning, in each one of the city nodes, we are putting in project management consultants, and these are PMCs who deliver across the world. These are leading international players like AECOM, CH2M, Jacobs Engineering, etc., who will handhold the SPV. And actually, they will really, we are investing a lot of resources into these program management consultants who will actually ensure delivery of the projects. So they will do the risk analysis, they will mitigate the risk, and they will actually review, monitor the detailed engineering, and actually supervise, control, and deliver the project on ground in accordance with the time and in accordance with the cost.
Mr. Mahesh, two things that comes to my mind. There are changes in the projects, like we saw in the Bandra Worli thing, the scope was changed. And the other thing that comes to my mind is the inadequate planning. When I look at the Mumbai Metro, the last phase I see, again, it was supposed to be completed by March 2012, now it's in March 2013. For whatever reason, they say they can't get the land clearance, things like that. So why can we change all this, alter all those things? And what are the lessons from this?
Clearly, if you contrast the way projects of interest of public use that happen in Delhi vis-a-vis projects that happen outside, I think there are some messages here, and the message is that if there is a strong champion either in the central government or in the state government to try and debottleneck a whole lot of issues that actually arise during the phase of such implementation. For example, in the case of DMRC, you would upset a whole lot of people's lives in terms of the right of way, maybe upset the way commercial complexes are, or it might even hamper their businesses or even rework or change their locations. And this is true even for a Bombay Metro kind of a project. There would be some collateral impact at that level, either on people directly with respect to their residences or on commercial establishments.
My question is, all these things should have been factored in the project before it started.
Factored in the project is, you can, the project planning, you can factor some time for all of this, yes, surely.
It's also almost tantamount saying 1 day at a time, which I think is unfair in infrastructure.
Yeah, but I think the one clear message, two clear messages that come out of the Delhi example and here, particularly the Delhi Metro example that is there, is it spent a lot of time not just planning but also getting the power of the people behind it, mobilizing public opinion. And then, of course, it got the power of an act. And all that happened because there was a strong, shall we say, governmental support to make all of this happen. And I have been witness to some of their decision-making processes earlier to say that whenever there was an issue, it would get scaled up very fast into their senior management decision-making, and then scaled up from there to the ministry also very fast. And I have seen that the government used to give a fairly strong support. So projects of this kind, DMIC as we call it, or for that matter even Mumbai Metro or Delhi Metro, they are not going to happen unless there is a strong government support backbone at different levels to happen. And there is one more aspect in it, as to who is implementing the project makes a huge difference. If it's a private sector organization, we look at the promoter, we look at the management team, whether they have the track record to handle complex projects, because all infrastructure projects have, a variety of approvals, whether they are 57 or 60 or whatever that number, and linkages to manage. And so you need the management team to have a capability to understand that. If they have not done it, if they're doing it for the first time, just because somebody is implemented a good real estate project doesn't mean he's going to be able to implement a good power project.
What are 3 or 4 things the government and corporate must do to bring the cost overrun and time overrun to a single digit level?
There are 3 important elements or players to create a project management culture in this country. First and foremost is the government. The government must give project management the required importance of extending and putting up a project management cell at the central level, project management cell at the state level, and if required, project management cells at the district level. From the organization perspective, one must be able to develop talent within the organization, because people become project managers accidentally, and therefore they must learn project management skills and then embark on a journey of project management. And third is the future talent which is going to come to the workforce, which is going to come to this country, should get trained by academia.
Very depressing figure if I look at it. You know, when you look at the 12th plan figure of $1 trillion the government is willing to spend, and by going over a discussion today, even if it is 40%, even 30% cost overrun, that's $300 billion down the drain. So how do we now kind of scotch it, or is project management way out, or what are the practices we need to, what kind of culture we need to bring in?
I think I'll just probably contradict that. I know the figures in the absolute terms don't look very healthy, but I think if you look at our track records from the 10th to the 11th and probably now the 12th when it happens, there has been an improvement. You know, yes, the improvement in the PPP in the private sector in terms of performance is better than in the public, but even in the public sector projects, the central projects, you do see improvement. So I'm kind of, you know, it is fair to expect, yes, it is not at the same pace as one would have liked it to be, but there is an appreciation to strengthen the project management and the other arenas to align to delivering the project in time, and hence there is an improvement which is happening. So I know it's not as gloomy as it should be portrayed.
Like a company like L&T has a project management expertise, but other companies, Mr. Bata, do you think they're fighting shy of having a project management team because of the cost involved? Can it be outsourced?
We have made mistakes both in public and private sector, but there is a will to learn and people are learning. All these issues, they are not getting discussed for the first time. They have been discussed earlier also amongst the stakeholders, and whatever backups need to be created, I suppose the stakeholders have been working on it.
Okay, very well put. I think the audience will ask you a few questions.
What efforts is this industry, the private industry, going to do, and what is the public sector going to do to get away from this low bid situation?
The way that can be done in different projects is to have the 2-stage bidding process where you pre-qualify people based on technical scores and look at pricing only after that.
My name is Rajesh. I'm into SAP Consulting. We have talked about a lot of risk. Of the projects which have failed, do we have a data how much time and effort has been put into the project risk management? Second point which I would like to make is that we have a bureaucracy, it's floating in a sense. Every 3 years they will be moving into different ministry or different posts. So how can you ensure the continuity of a project?
Well, I think that's a very key issue, and I think it's, the question is highly pertinent. But I think one of the ways to manage some of this risk is to bring in professional program management consultants to handhold the SPVs, or to handhold the project promoters over a long period of time.
Let me make an effort to answer the risk management part of the question, because that's what we do almost like for living. But I think your point is absolutely right, and risk management as a concept is talked about. You know, in fact, if you go around and do a survey to all the project managers, I think, you know, I'm giving from my experience, 70% of the project managers in the survey will respond, yes, we do risk management, but still the projects fail. I think the point is risk management again is a science, and it's a way you live. Risk is how you live. Risk is in everything we do. Projects have bigger risks, and I can tell you the reason for success, a strong contribution of success, is effective risk management.
My question is that when we talk about infrastructure projects in general, okay, we say that the project is getting delayed because of the clearances and the licensing, the approvals and all. I mean, how do we take this into consideration when we are planning a project? Because we for sure know that this is, a problem that we are going to face. How do we, consider it as a planning so that we don't, fail and we complete on time?
We use internal learnings and we look at what market related factors, what problems other projects have faced, and we use it from a time planning point of view. Only way to do this is the answer that was given earlier, which is to have a risk management process which takes into account the reality of time. I mean, if it takes 6 months, it may not be the best thing to happen, but if it takes 6 months for something that should be cleared in 1 month, there is no point in planning that I'll get it in 2 months. You got to plan 6 months.
My question is the final phase which Mr. Rajiv had spoken, the evaluation part. What are the factors or what are the parts that we need to highlight or we need to look at? So again, I probably draw my reference back to the first statement I made. As I said, the evaluate part. It's very, very important because project is science and you learn from your mistakes. And in fact, to know what has gone wrong and right needs to be factored in. Now today, the precedence is a project is as good as the project manager. If you have a good project manager because he's delivered the projects successfully, he's managed the risk, he will carry on that. The point we are trying today is that while skill, you cannot undermine skill because people will do the work and the talent and skill is important. But equally important is institutionalization of the project delivery.
Okay, final question is, what are 3 or 4 things the government and corporate must do to bring the cost overrun and time overrun to a single digit level?
Well, to my mind, the key is good project development for one, and secondly, India needs to make a very big quantum jump in bringing in good project management skills. And to my mind, this is a science. Project management is a science. It is an investment which will very sharply reduce the cost of projects in the long run. So every single project which government is doing, and let me tell you, government will be the key catalyst, whether these are PPP projects or government-owned EPC projects, but the government is the key for most of the projects, and government must bring in some of the best program management consultants from across the world to deliver projects on time and on cost.
Rajiv, you want to?
I would kind of, in addition to what Mr. Kant has said, clearly the role I think the government we should expect obviously gets these regulatory challenges addressed. I think one other thing which probably also merits, and we probably alluded that to some extent, is a thought which was actually broached in one of the discussions was actually to creating an equipment bank, very similar to a land bank, because that is a very constraining factor.
Calcutta-based company is doing that. I think Shrey is doing that.
No, this is looking at a state and the central level.
Okay.
So some statistics reveal that they're close to 175,000 crores of equipment lying idle, and there is a short of it.
Mr. Maheshwari?
Yeah, I would say two things. I think government oversight and troubleshooting framework, which I am told now Prime Minister's office is also initiating something of that kind from Ministry of Finance, etc. One of the issues that we have found is that we probably do end up getting some good quality engineers, but probably not very good quality civil engineers. The other element is, and that's even a bigger one, semi-skilled labor. That's a bigger black hole. We seem to be focusing on engineering, but we are not looking at the skilled and the semi-skilled labor that is there. That is becoming an extremely a big short supply in the Indian situation. Mr. Batra, final word?
I would broadly agree with what has been said so far, but 2 points. One of them is on the government side that as far as clearances and provision of inputs is concerned, it remains the responsibility of the government, and I think if it can be provided through a single point, I mean, to use a hackneyed word, if there could be some single window system, or if there could be a nodal point.
That is happening in the PM office right now.
No, but that is for a very large project. This could happen in each state, and we have seen that states like Gujarat, where these clearances come fast, the projects get off the ground very quickly. So, other states can follow such examples. The second is, actually looking at the pool of maybe the largest 100 projects that we have under implementation today, and then to look at them individually, what are the bottlenecks, and get them going together with whatever are the stakeholders involved. That is what might give a very strong push, you know, to the current current state of affairs, and get other associated developers with those large projects also moving.
Gentlemen, thanks a lot for being on the show. It was really a pleasure to have you all.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.